to today's meditation time. As we get closer and closer to the autumn equinox, which is coming very, very soon, that day of equal light and dark, I want to focus tonight on preparing for that. So we know about the autumn equinox is that the sun and the moon get into this amazing position with one another where each gets the same amount of light in the day. So the moon gets to rise up and we have the nighttime, and the sun comes up and we have the daytime, and we have this beautiful, balanced 24 hours. And so I want to start off, first let's get comfortable, and then I want to share a story that's about balance as well, that I think will really help us to prepare for the autumn equinox, for the shift in our seasons. Some of that is the season that is happening around us with the months on the calendar. Some of it, for us, it's the season that's going on in our lives, the experiences that we're having, the traumas that we're going through, the relationships that we're navigating. So first, just be comfortable where you are. That is the most important thing. Just come to either a seated position or a lying down position that feels good. And start to find a really good rhythm of breath. Just taking a slow, deep breath in. Then a slow, deep breath out. And again, a slow, deep breath in. Then a slow, deep breath out. A couple more times. Deep breath in. Then let it go. And one more. And you just continue with the rate of breath that feels good. We use the breath to settle, to clear, to calm, to release. So continue with the rate of breath that does those things for you. And as your eyes are gently closing or you're looking down toward the ground, I want to share with you a story that has been shared many times in the past. It actually floated around quite a bit right after September the 11th. And it's a story of a Native American grandfather. He was talking to his grandson about the violence and the cruelty in the world and how those things come to be. He said it's like two wolves are fighting inside of one's heart. One wolf is vengeful and angry, and the other wolf is understanding and kind and compassionate. And so the young boy asked his grandfather, which wolf will win the fight in my heart? And the grandfather paused and looked him in his eye, and he said, the wolf that wins will be the one that I choose and that you choose to feed. And so I thought that was such a beautiful story. I've heard it so many times, but for it to connect us to the autumn equinox, this day of these two competing forces, the light and the dark. And on that day, we feel balance between the two. The competition begins to leave within nature for just a bit. But within us, how do we figure out which wolf we're feeding? Because that wolf of either personality exists in both of us. We all have those parts of us where there's aggression and there's anger and there's frustration, but we also have the parts of us that are compassionate and loving and kind. And so as you sit and just breathe and find a little comfort and a little stillness, I want to ask some questions of you, of me, of us individually and us collectively that will help us ensure that we're feeding the better of the two wolves. The first question says, how can I start training today to feed the right wolf? It's not a decision for tomorrow or next week or in the next chapter of life or when a certain thing happens or things get better. Right now, today, what can I do? How can I start training to feed the right wolf? You know, if you're going to try to run a marathon in the springtime, you don't start running the marathon the day of. You know that's your goal and you start to train. So if our goal is to feed the kind and compassionate and loving wolf, how can we start that training today? And then secondly, how can you and I call on our intuition, our intelligence, to know which choices we make hurt and which choices we make help? Don't answer it yet, but just think, how can I begin to tap into my intuition, my intelligence, and truly know which choices I'm making hurt and which choices help? And finally, we are inundated with so much in our everyday lives. It gets so overwhelming sometimes. And sometimes we feel like our response is almost out of our control because there's just so much stimulus. But the third question says, how can you know with certainty what will escalate my aggression and what will uncover my compassion? It's going to be different for each of us. There's situations that cause each of us to bubble up inside and for aggression to begin to grow, but there's also situations where our heart gets pricked and compassion begins to bubble up instead. So how do I stay in tune with the things I know escalate my aggression? And I need to stay away from those, and the things that help me uncover my compassion. So let's just sit together for a couple moments of silence, of quiet and of stillness, and just let those questions just kind of just sit. We're not trying to answer any questions tonight. We're just trying to ask the questions. So how can we start training right now to begin to feed the kind, compassionate wolf? How can we use our intuition and our intelligence to know what choices we're making will help and what choices will hurt? And how can we begin to recognize the things that escalate our aggression and the things that uncover our loving kindness and compassion? So let those the questions just sit with us in the space, hanging in the air, and let's breathe. And as you breathe and I breathe and we sit, let's see what is revealed in our mind's eye. Just let that sound bring our attention back to these moments that we have to share together. And before we begin to close and head toward the ending of our time, just notice what's in your mind right now. How are you going to train? How are you going to use your intuition to start to know what choices hurt and what choices help? And how are you going to watch for the signs of the things that escalate your aggression and the things that unlock your compassion and kindness? And so every day, I'll ask myself, you ask yourself. I'll examine myself, you examine yourself. And if we commit to doing that, the right wolf will be fed. And we will begin to see change in our world. One heart, one spirit at a time. It starts individually, but the impact will be collective. The choice is ours. Let's start training today. Namaste.